This is Tyrese Haliburton, and you're listening to Setting the Pace.
Pacer Nation, what is going on? Welcome back to Setting the Pace, your go-to Pacers podcast. We are here not just talking about Pacer basketball, we're talking about a Pacers win 115 to 109. Nobody better to talk to us about the game because he is back. It is the one, the only Alex Golden. Alex, welcome back.
Hey, it's good to be back. Thanks for holding it down for me last night. Great episode with you and Bryce Simon. I really enjoyed getting to know more about this Pistons team and just kind of getting his thoughts on the Pacers as well. I thought it was a really good game preview. But yeah, you're right. Tonight's game, 115-109, and I will tell you, Facci, it was ugly. But you know what? The ugly wins still count as a win, and this is a Pacers team that I have on the quest for 51 wins. So one down, 50 more to go.
The next 50 are going to be tough because this game was not easy. It was rough. I had moments of being like, you know what? There's a chance maybe we're not that great this year. And it's the classic one game overreaction. But I'm just happy in the end. The Pacers buckled down when it mattered most in the fourth quarter, and they did it with defense. I mean, this is, you see 115 on the scoreboard. That's really low for a Pacers team that looks like it could score points in their sleep. It was a challenge tonight, but like you said, an ugly win is a win nonetheless. No one's going to remember how you got it as long as you got it. And tonight, it shows a W in the win column. Hey, 1-0, that's what matters most.
Yeah, it really does. And I will say, for all the things I had on my bingo card, the one thing I did not have on my bingo card was Tyrese Haliburton doing his best Mikal Bridges impersonation. I mean, 1 of 9 from three. I
That's
was like,
great.
man, did somebody change a shot over the summer? Like, what happened? But hits the dagger when it matters most. Really put the icing on the cake for the Pacers. But a lot of ways we could go here, Facci. But I think that the biggest storyline probably from this game is the play of Benedict Mathurin. It just feels like every time that Ben plays Detroit, he takes it personal, and he ended up playing 28 minutes in this game tonight, had 19 points on 5 of 8 shooting, which means he got to the free throw line 9 times, which is what you love to see from Mathurin. And interestingly enough, Aaron Nesmith only plays 19 minutes, doesn't play in the fourth quarter at all, right? So it's just like Rick Carlisle, he has no problem playing the hot hand when they're playing right. So really good game for Mathurin, and a lot better than what we saw probably the last 2 showings in the preseason.
A lot of questions about his Mathurin coming off the bench. Who's going to be the starting small forward? In the end, it was Mathurin that closed the game. And I think that that's typically when you see of like, maybe who could be your best five or whatever it is. Sometimes it comes down to the hot hand. And Mathurin had that going. It was 14 of his 19 coming in the fourth. You talked about, getting to the free throw line. All 9 of his free throw attempts came in the fourth quarter, and he went 7 of 9. It's just like he gets to the line like a way that no other Pacer has been able to do it. Actually, in this game, no other Pacer attempted more than 3 free throws. Mathurin having 9 in the fourth quarter, it was huge. He had some big shots. Might have been a little bit of push off, but he had a moment. I'm telling you right now, I could see it, and when it happened, I knew it. He is going to put up a picture on Instagram. He dropped Jaden Ivey on
Mhm.
on a basket and made it. And I know it was such a cold image that we will see that on social media. I can guarantee it. But yeah, you mentioned it. He always brings just a little something extra against Detroit. And it was just great to see him step up when we really needed him, silence a lot of doubters. And on a night like this is why people have Mathurin as that, quiet sixth man of the year type candidate because he's excelling in that role.
Yeah, I mean, I really was happy for him more than anything, just because we know everything he's been through in terms of just trying to get over the hump in terms of the shoulder injury that he had last year against Dallas, and then trying to prove people wrong, even us a little bit, to does he fit with this team? I mean, that has been the biggest question mark. How does he fit with this team long term? And there early on in the fourth quarter, before he started getting it going, TJ McConnell got really hot, and I was
He
like,
did.
okay. I
We
was like, I
needed it.
like when McConnell is really attacking off the drive because it just opens up so much more. And after he had about 6 straight points, here comes Mathurin doing his work. And so it was really nice to kind of see them play off of each other and allow TJ, to kind of get things going, but then let Benedict cook after that. So I was really fascinated with both of the ways they played. I thought that, McConnell going 7 of 8, just picking up right where he left off, just 14 points in 16 minutes. I mean, that's incredible efficiency there from TJ McConnell. But This was an ugly game going early on, Foch. If you go back to the first half, it was just terrible play from the Pacers. It looked like they were just one step behind on everything. And I know that sometimes it's the opening night for the other team, and the juices are just a little bit, hotter, I guess you could say, right? For the team that is at home and they're playing in front of their home fans for the first night. So, in my personal opinion, I will just say these are hard games to win. Bad teams that have an 0-0 record, that are at home with a crazy fan base, excited for opening night. It's a new start, it's a new whatever. And the Pacers took the Pistons' best punches, especially Cade Cunningham's, but they were able to bounce back and just stay the course and finish it out over 48 minutes.
Yeah, I really felt like in the beginning it was almost like a college game where it's like that crowd is really fueling the team that isn't expected to win. They get off to that hot start, but you feel like things will even out eventually. It took longer than I hoped, but eventually, yes, the Pacers did respond in the fourth quarter. That's really where things got very interesting. When you talk about TJ McConnell, McConnell had 8 of his points in the first 3 minutes of the fourth quarter. That was such a pivotal stretch where Indiana entered the fourth quarter trailing by 8, and it felt like no one could really get it going. And I just felt McConnell, year after year, we talk about it. He is that spark that lights this team, and it's just the Pacers needed it so bad. Just a couple of fourth quarter stats just to throw at you. In the fourth quarter, Indiana outscored Detroit 33-19. They held Detroit to just 5 made field goals. 2 of those 5 made shots came in the first 2 minutes of the fourth. That means that Indiana only gave up 3 made field goals for just about the final 10 minutes of this game. We are not used to talking about the Pacers in that type of defensive light. So that was just awesome to see. And at the same point, Indiana shot 11 of 18 from the field in the fourth quarter. I mean, they saved their best for last. You can easily be the Debbie Downer that says, yeah, but this is against Detroit. This is an improved Detroit team. I mean, in the first half, their top 3 leading scorers were their newcomers, Tobias Harris, Malik Beasley, and Tim Hardaway Jr. Like, they are going to be a little bit of a better team, but I think that Indiana really needed that wake-up call after a sluggish preseason. It took 3 quarters, but in the end, hey, they got it done when it mattered most.
Hey, Malik Beasley felt right at home taking another loss from the Pacers. It's just how it happens with Malik Beasley. But no, you're right. I mean, the fourth quarter, you could tell the Pacers really tightened things up, and it was one of those things where, like, the third quarter, they ended poorly. You were kind of feeling like, man, the momentum, switched right back into the hands of the Detroit Pistons. But Cade Cunningham gets that technical foul to end the third. Right? Was it on Cade? I think it was on Cade after he made that.
So classic welcome to the NBA moment rookie. Cade Cunningham hits a big shot, and it's Ron Holland who
That's right.
and runs onto the court and gets too excited, leading to a technical free throw. I felt like that was you can't get too excited like that. This is the pros.
Okay, I was watching on my phone, and I think the broadcast was kind of like trying to figure out what happened. So I apologize for not noticing that. But they did get another technical foul too in the fourth quarter during a substitution where they allowed Cade to come into the game, but then they were like, no, everybody's got to stay back. Well, Cade comes into the game. Ron Holland is the guy right there in front of the Pistons bench, and you can see Luke Walton try to grab him off the bench, off the court onto the bench real quick, and unfortunately gets a team technical foul for having 6 players on the court. And I think that was a massive game changer for the Pacers too, just little plays like that. But to be honest with you, this Pacers team, they go down, I think they were down 9 at half, right, Foch? So they go down 9 to the locker room, and then Miles Turner just comes out and scores the next 12 points for the Pacers. So Miles Turner, I mean, you talk about it. He led the team in scoring and didn't score 1 point in the fourth quarter. So that third quarter eruption from Turner was just incredible to see. And the fact that he got the first 12 points, I know Cade Cunningham ended up matching him a little bit there with some points of his own, but it was just really good to see Miles take advantage of that matchup because we know that his outside shooting is such a weapon. And this is why you like having that versatility in your front court next to Siakam. It's just, you can have a guy that can spread the floor, and now that pulls Jalen Duren, a great shot blocker, away from the rim, and he's not going to fully commit to wanting to guard somebody out on the perimeter because if he gets beat off the dribble, then it's just, harder for him to recover. So I just think that Miles Turner getting going in the third was honestly one of the big momentum swings in this game as well, just getting the pace a little bit more confident coming into the third quarter.
It totally was. Turner struggled in the first half. He had 4 points on 1 of 6 shooting. Not a lot going on. You talk about scoring the 12 to really start the quarter. He finished with 16 points in the third quarter alone. I feel like that was the put up or shut up type of moment for Indiana, where it's like you needed to just hit back. And I feel like Turner really set the tone in that third quarter. It was huge. It was a big difference. It's like there was shifts in this game where guys were able to step up. Haliburton was really struggling, really was. This was when he needed to look to his teammates. And to be honest, this was not your typical Haliburton assist game. Like, I know even you had put out that tweet, hey, I could see Haliburton 13 assists. Yeah, we all could have seen it, but it just didn't happen tonight. He actually finished this game with 4 assists. That's unlike him. The shot wasn't falling, so you needed guys like Turner in the third quarter to dominate with 16 points. You needed guys like Mathurin to have 14 in the fourth quarter, things like that. And that's why this Pacers team is so deep, because we already talked about Haliburton saving his best for last. He hits the biggest shot of the night when it's 110 to 107. That three-pointer that he hit, the only one that he hit, proved to be the biggest shot of the game, and it was just great that he had the confidence to stay in there. He had missed his previous, it was either 7 or 8 3-pointers. I think it was his first 8. Yeah. He missed his first 8 3-pointers. He goes 1 of 9, and you could just say, hey, you know what? At least you didn't stop shooting, because that last shot was his biggest shot, and that was the difference in this game.
It really was. And I mean, you just never tell a guy that's such a great shooter to stop shooting the basketball, because when he makes the dagger at the moment, that's when you get the worldwide wob tweet, it's always Haliburton, right? So just beautiful to see. And we've gone this far into the episode and haven't even mentioned Pascal Siakam's game, which it did feel a little bit quiet. But Pascal led the team in assists with 9 assists. He had 8 rebounds and 19 points. And that thunder dunk that he had at the end, I mean, it was a gorgeous pass from Haliburton on the fast break. And I thought Jalen Duren was going to block it, but Siakam got that dunk up so quick, Jalen Duren didn't even have time to load up and block the shot. So thought that was a big momentum swing there too. So I really like the way that Pascal Siakam was just steady, but didn't really feel like he was like the star of any part of the game. It was just this consistent points here and there. It's like you need that from your guys. But I felt like, defensively, they hold Detroit to 109. The first half, like you said, it was a pretty abysmal defensive effort in the first half. Detroit was kind of getting their way, but to hold them to, under, what was it, 51 points? What would they have at half again? Was it 58-49?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, so they ended up holding them to what? 51 points in the second half. So much better, right? Like the Pacers' goal, we've joked about it previously on this podcast, right? They want to hold opponents to under 30 points a quarter. That's what they've been saying since last year. Well, they definitely did it in this game, because it was closer to like 27 points, I guess you could say, around that, 27 points per quarter. So, much better job in the fourth, like you mentioned earlier. But I want to get your thoughts on Pascal's game, just because I felt like, wow, 19 points, 9 assists, 8 rebounds, and was a plus 15 in the game. Also had 2 steals. Didn't seem as loud during the game, but the box score definitely kind of reflects something a little bit different.
Yeah, no, he was balanced. I mean, he had 8 points at halftime. I want to say they scored like 7 in the third, a couple in the fourth. Like, it was just consistent. He never had one of those, like, how we talked about Turner struggled in the first half and then went scoreless in the fourth, but had a huge third quarter. We didn't have one of those huge quarters out of Siakam, but from an assist standpoint, I mentioned it earlier. The ball movement, it wasn't happening from Haliburton. At one point at halftime, he had like 2 assists to 2 turnovers. It was Siakam that we've known at times can take on that, you don't want to say point guard, but that point forward type role. And I think he played it really well tonight. He also had Nembhard with 7 assists as well. So it's great to see that the top 2 guys in assists didn't include Tyrese Haliburton. That just shows the ball movement on this team is really good. But also Siakam did have some very key, rebounds. He did have 3 offensive rebounds, which is great. That led the Pacers. And I felt like this was a team that at one point I worried could get crushed on the glass. They actually ended up winning the rebounding battle against Detroit. And I was really nervous about that, because Jalen Duren had, I think it was like, he had like 9 rebounds at halftime. And I think that was something that I was really worried about. Indiana ends up winning that rebounding battle just by 1, but 39-38. I think that was big that they were able to step up in that second half. And just overall, this was one of those games that the bench didn't really have it at times, and you were a little bit worried, but it was like more of like that fourth quarter that the Pacers really stepped ahead, and that kind of changed a lot of the plus minuses. on the box score that you'll see. But I just really feel like it was interesting to see that, Neesmith's the guy that doesn't score in the second half. Andrew Nembhard doesn't score in the second half. The Pacers found ways to get others involved at times to be able to handle that scoring load, whether it was the outburst from TJ McConnell, the outburst from Mathurin, or from Turner. It just all worked out to balance this team out. But Alex, there was one other thing. I know we're hopping all over the place, but
It's all right.
in the beginning, James Wiseman was off to a good start. He had a couple baskets early on. I thought this was a huge opportunity for him against his old team with no Isaiah Jackson. And then, of all things, I see him attempt a three-pointer. And I'm like, all right, whatever, he's open. What's the worst that could happen? And the worst did happen. His calf, it looked like, it was a non-contact injury. Anytime you see a non-contact injury with the calf, you fear for the Achilles. He was immediately ruled out. That worries me. We're gonna have to wait to get like final results. I haven't heard any updates since, but just an absolute shame for James Wiseman, who was cooking with 6 points early in just about 4 minutes.
Yeah, Rick Carlisle was asked about this in the press conference in Detroit, and he said that they're going to do an MRI in New York tomorrow, and they'll have more updates on his, injury and what the, I guess what the exact details are on that. So something to monitor there, but it stinks because Isaiah Jackson, who is the Pacers' second string center, was also out. So now the Pacers are down their second and third string centers, and they have to go play a little small ball. And a guy that we were raving about in preseason, somebody that Chad Buchanan talked about loving his energy, was Enrique Freeman. And Enrique Freeman gets into the game and plays 7 minutes, actually plays more minutes than Jarace Walker and Ben Shepherd, which is just crazy to think about. But he plays 7 minutes. They play him a little bit of the small ball five. And Obi was out there with him as well, so you could have maybe said Obi was playing the five, Enrique was playing the four. But regardless, going without a traditional big, and at times it worked. At times you kind of felt where you needed a little bit more size out there. But with Beef Stew being the backup five for Detroit, he is a little bit smaller. And I was actually curious coming into the game if the Pacers would go with Wiseman as the backup five in that 10-man rotation, or if they would slide Obi down, put Jarace at the four and Shep at the three, just because they probably know this system a little bit better. And it might make some sense if you're trying to play with Isaiah Stewart, but I can understand he's a pretty physical guy. You probably want Wiseman, who knows him from all the practices they had together the last season playing with him. So definitely was happy to see Wiseman play well, but I'm really bummed for him that this injury did occur, because the thing that has kind of hindered his career mostly has been injuries, right? So it's just, once again, an unfortunate situation for him. But let's talk about a big talking point here that's been the preseason talking point and the training camp talking point, is who's going to win that backup small forward spot. We all thought it was Jarace Walker. It looked like it was going to be Jarace Walker tonight. He plays 6 minutes, and then in the second half doesn't play at all. And it was Ben Shepherd who got those backup 3 minutes. So do you think it was matchup dependent? Do you think it was Carlisle actually wants to play Shepherd more now because he trusts him more? I just curious your thoughts on why they made that change.
It's interesting because both guys played 6 minutes. I mean, Shepard didn't even play in the first half. Walker didn't play in the second half. I think it's now feels like a question mark. I felt like we had thought we had some answers. Like, I remember even when we had Chad on recently, ask him, hey, is Jarace Walker going to consistently be in the rotation? Of course, he said, hey, that's up to the coaches. I thought when we saw Walker early on that he would be, playing more in this game. But it was interesting because we saw how Mathurin really rode out the full fourth quarter. And now I really don't know what they're going to be doing. I would anticipate that Jarace Walker should be playing more than 6 minutes. I thought that was kind of interesting to me. And Ben Shepherd, someone that when he came in, I was already like, oh, wow. I'm surprised he hadn't already been in yet. Like, it was the first time seeing him, I don't know if it was midway into the third quarter or so, but neither player really left an impact on this game, and I'm just very curious to see like what is the plan moving forward. And not to go off topic a little bit, but if James Wiseman is out, I know they said they weren't in a rush to fill that last roster spot, but all of a sudden now you have to really consider it, because I don't know how long Isaiah Jackson's going to be out for. Maybe he is back against New York. I'm not sure. Doesn't feel like a long-term injury, but if James Wiseman happens to be out long-term, are you fully able to just trust Enrique Freeman and be able to have him running out there? I felt like it was a great story to see him out there on night one But I also am just a little bit hesitant to say, hey, right now, can we trust Jarris Walker and Enrique Freeman to be playing meaningful minutes right now? I'm not quite sure, but I want to believe.
Yeah, I would say against Detroit, you probably feel better about it, but against New York, I don't think you feel the
Yeah,
same way, right?
no, I don't.
That's what I'm saying. So I think it's all matchup dependent. And I do think that with Precious Achua for New York, he's a physical big, but he's not super big. And we saw the Pacers go small at times against New York. I know they try to play a little bit bigger with Isaiah Hartenstein in there and always have Jackson Miles in there. But when it comes to, how they handled things against Boston, we saw a lot where they just didn't play Isaiah in closing moments, and you saw Siakam and Toppin out there together. The thing is, you don't want to put a lot of early minutes on Miles throughout the season. I mean, if you have to do it for a short extended couple of games here, that's fine, but you don't want to put 36 37 minutes on Miles, because thankfully Miles was out of foul trouble tonight, even though Quinn Buckner was a little bit confused there.
That was great. He's like, is that the sixth foul on Miles? And Chris goes, that's his third. Quinn.
Yeah.
And I was just like, how could you just be off by that much?
Well,
It's one thing if it's his fifth instead of his sixth, something like that. But to just double his fouls is pretty crazy.
what made me laugh so hard too is when Miles picked up his second, when he fouled Duran and he hit him in the face, and Tony Brothers called the foul on him for hitting him. He got his arm on his head. It was so funny to me because Quinn's like, "Oh no, that's another one on Miles," and I'm like, "That was what they said." They're like, "That Miles turned her second foul," and then literally, I'm cracking up because he picks his third one up like, a while's like a late ways. I'm trying to say that right. A long time later, like I don't know how to say that. I'm really bad with my words right now, but a ways later in the game, he fouls him again. It's like, man, I'm really worried about Miles. That is six, and I'm like, Quinn, what is happening here?
It was crazy.
Quinn was just really into the game, so I love Quinn, and nothing I can say bad about Quinn. I mean, I know people are like sometimes not his biggest fan, but like when I quoted that and I put it on my Twitter, it was not to make fun of Quinn. It was just a hilarious, like how into the game he was. But ultimately, I will say this: I think that they probably will not trust Enrique Freeman. And if Wiseman's out for a long time, if he's out for the year, like I don't want to go that
Yeah.
extreme, whatever, but like they could definitely look at picking up a third string center. I'm sure there are players out there, like someone just to kind of throw a name out there. I think he was waived by the Phoenix Suns as Frank Kaminsky. Somebody like that.
He was.
Somebody like that could make some sense if you need to go out there and
Yeah.
find some depth that is probably a better fit for this season than Enrique Freeman, because I just still want to see Enrique Freeman develop in the G League. I don't want to see him thrust onto the Pacers roster as this emergency third string center that isn't going to play a lot and take away reps from that he could get with the G League. And they talked about like they really want to develop these guys in the G League. So that is kind of the route I would go. I'm not saying Frank the Tank's the guy exactly I want, but somebody like that has the experience.
It's a good name to throw out there, though. He's a veteran that has, excelled at times in this league. Like he is someone that it's like, by no means is like, oh, I don't know if we could put this guy out there. Enrique Freeman, I just feel like you don't want to thrust a guy out there into where each mistake can be like, now you got to pull him, and now it's like you can't trust him like that. Like let him grow, let him be able to make mistakes. It's just hard to be able to do that in real NBA games right now, and I don't think anybody expected him to be playing on night one in a game that mattered, in like a situation that mattered. So yeah, I definitely have some questions there. I think I just didn't see anything from Obi Toppin tonight that made me confident of like, hey, all right, like it was a very very quiet game out of Obi. He was a -9, 2 points, 2 shots. I mean, just he had as many fouls as points and rebounds combined. It was a very forgettable performance where I felt like you had Mathurin, you had McConnell excel, and then after that, I mean there was definitely a lot of quiet performances by some young players that I started to look at this and say, you know what, man, we really do need Isaiah Jackson back, because I feel like that's someone that at any moment could have a good stretch. He could bring some toughness. He could bring some rebounds. I felt like outside of the 6 rebounds from Mathurin, actually the rest of the bench combined for 7 rebounds total. So I feel like that's something that Isaiah Jackson could bring to the table by himself. But hey, look, like we said, a win is a win. I think this is one where the sky could have felt like it was falling if the Pacers lost this game. The one thing that I feel is Haliburton, by hitting that big 3, kind of did bail him out of what was a a pretty rough performance. I mean, we talked about his struggles, from three. He was 0 of 8, which is interesting. But we also saw he just didn't look like he was aggressive or in a groove. And I miss the Tyrese Haliburton from late 2023, that October to December, October to January-ish time frame. That guy was just, he felt so confident and just on fire. And I know it's just one game. Here's the problem though. We barely got to see him with Team USA. He wasn't playing that big of a role. When we last saw him, he was hurt, against Boston. And then even before that, it was inconsistent play. And I asked Chad, I said, is he feeling like 100% in himself again? And of course, you got the answer, hey, yep, he's feeling good, all that. Great. When do you think we see the Tyrese Haliburton back?
I think it's going to take some time. So I think he's still trying to figure out exactly how to fit in with the offense with, so many mouths to feed, because Siakam there, it is a different team than it was. It wasn't all relying upon him doing everything, right? So I think that plays a factor into it. And number two, I just think that teams are defending him differently, right? Because teams know he is the engine of this offense. So if they can kind of slow him down and put more of an emphasis on him, that's going to be key. But the 3-point shooting, I'm not worried about that. I think it was just he didn't play a lot in preseason. And I think that maybe next year he'll say, okay, maybe I should put some more effort into the preseason to get myself just some more game reps, to get game ready for shooting. Because we saw some pretty decent play shooting wise in the preseason. I think he did okay against the Hawks, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I'm forgetting, but it was one of those things where it's like Tyrese, the shooter, hasn't been as consistent as you'd probably like him to be for a while now. And it's probably just because he's not taking the same shots or not getting them as frequently. So maybe, he did still take 9 attempts. I mean, I know that's quite a bit, but in the flow of the offense, I trust him more than anything to make these shots moving forward. But I will throw this back out at you because I'm kind of a little curious with the shoe change. Do you think that has anything to do with it potentially? Because if you're used to playing in Nikes and they feel good and you switch to a Puma and it's not the same type of shoe, but it's a little different, do you think that could have any impact on it?
I'm going to say no for now, just because I feel like it's a small sample size. Like we're talking about, the preseason and this regular season game. So we'll have to wait and see a little bit longer. I mean, the nightmare is that it turns into like Lonzo Ball blaming his old shoes for like his career going downhill and injuries and stuff. So it's like you don't want anything like that to happen. But at the same point, Puma, a much more reputable company than Big Baller Brand. So I'm gonna trust Puma here. But that's an interesting point by you. But I'll tell you one thing: if those struggles continue, that point's going to gain some. It's going to pick up some steam. People are going to start to want to boycott those shoes, and I don't want to see Tyrese and Puma go down like that. So Tyrese, hey, let's have a bounce back performance against New York, where we could just say Tyrese is back. Because think about this: if you're talking about, hey, they're guarding him differently in Detroit, they are going to be coming for him in New York and that crowd. They don't forget. That crowd is going to be giving it to the Pacers, but in specific, Tyrese Haliburton, especially the way they've built this up, all offseason with Jalen Brunson and Tyrese and, what they got going on in WWE and their rivalry and just being compared to each other. Every time he touches the ball, he is going to be booed heavily. And I think I also think that he kind of is ready for that moment, though. And I think that him and the boys are going to be like super, amped up for this game. Flip side, the Knicks are coming off of a whooping at the hands of the Boston Celtics, and I really do think that the Knicks are going to be waiting to respond in this game.
Yeah, I think New York is going to be ready for a victory, but there's a lot of reasons why they have motivation to do it. So we'll see what the Pacers look like against New York. Maybe this will kind of get their juices flowing, like we mentioned last week. That could be the wake-up call, because I was like, this game against Detroit is probably not going to be that big of a wake-up call. I'm not surprised that things kind of went the way that they did, where you see the Pacers, right, start off kind of sluggish and claw back into it. Then Detroit sneaks away a little bit more and pulls the lead out a little bit more. And Indiana never really gets their foot underneath them early on, but then all of a sudden in the fourth quarter, they kind of flip that switch offensively and defensively and get a little bit better, just because they're the more talented team than Detroit. But you can't play basketball like that against New York. They're going to have to come out guns a-blazing. And the good thing is Aaron Nesmith did not play a lot of minutes. So hopefully he will be rested and ready for Jalen Brunson and the New York Knicks, because this is a Knicks team that not only are they looking to get their first victory of the season, it's the first home game for them, and it's the first time they've seen the Pacers since the Pacers eliminated them in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference semifinal. So there's a lot there, and I'm excited to kind of just see how the Pacers, I'm a little nervous too, to see how the Pacers respond, but this is going to show me what the Pacers are really made of. I think that this is a put on your big boy pants game, because this ain't the Detroit Pistons, this ain't the Washington Wizards, this ain't the Brooklyn Nets. This is the freaking New York Knicks, and they're a team that people are saying have the potential to upset Boston. Now, after the opening night, I think people feel a little bit differently.
Yeah.
But all offseason, if there was any team in the Eastern Conference that was going to push Boston out of the championship, going to the finals again, it's been New York. They've been talked heavily about. They've made a lot of moves, and I'll just say this: they're going to be a problem for the Pacers. Me and you both picked the Knicks to win this game. Before the season started, we just said this feels like a game the Knicks are going to win, but I am curious to see how Indiana responds, because this will show me a lot about how this team is made up. And I know that they did a lot last year, but it's a new season, and I'm hoping and I'm praying that they fight with more intensity, I guess you could say, than I believe that they will early on in the season. I feel like if this were game 41, 42, I'd feel differently about it. But with it being game 2, I don't know. I just feel like it's so soon in the season that you can't take too much out of the game, but only time in Madison Square Garden all season too. So hopefully Tyrese the villain comes out and plays like he did in Game 7, but it's going to be a very, very hostile environment.
Oh, it is. And if you are a diehard fan of this show, Setting the Pace, I'm going to put you at ease. I will not be in the Garden for this game. It hurts me not to be there, but at the same point, tickets just very expensive. I'm coming off of hitting the Mets and NLCS, so I'm gonna sit this one out, and I'm gonna hope that helps the Pacers out, because I still don't know when I'm gonna break my losing streak of attending Pacer games. But I think for the Pacers, this is a big opportunity. This is on ESPN. This is against a team that you ran into in the playoffs that you took out, but they are now looking to take us out. And I do think that will bring out some of the best in the Pacers, but at the same point, man, I definitely don't feel great about this game. I can't feel great about this game coming off of this type of performance against Detroit. I think that now we are at this point where we do have expectations for this team. They do need to be held accountable. I'm not going to come on here and be so negative, because we did still win. But if you drop this game to Detroit on opening night, you do have every right to say, you know what, I didn't see anything in the preseason. I was actually a little bit worried about this team. And then this type of sluggish performance, I'm just happy that they were able, things worked out for them the way they did. But yeah, it's a great test against New York early on. It's the first real test of the season, and we're going to see what this team is made of. If you go on the road and you play a really, really tough game against a Knicks team that, is at home, coming off of getting smacked, and they have everything to prove, okay, I could live with that. But if the Knicks were just to come out and just pounce on the Pacers early, I would not feel comfortable that Indiana can claw their way back the same way they did against Detroit, when you got guys like Ron Holland just, running out on the court being too excited, and they're making mistakes like this. You got to play better basketball against the Knicks. One quick thing I want to highlight for the Pacers, they played sloppy in the first half, 11 turnovers. In the second half, they really tightened up everything. I believe it was only it was 4 turnovers total in the second half. Great way to protect the rock and just be able to clean up some of that some of those mistakes. But I do think that we will get a better Tyrese Haliburton performance against the Knicks, and I think that goes a long way for elevating the play of just about everybody else. I wouldn't count on Tyrese having 4 assists again. Let's crank those numbers a bit up.
It's game 1. It's overreaction night. It's always fun. It's one of those things where it's like, it's a win, and that's all I care about. It's a win.
True.
They escaped Detroit. That's how I feel like they did. They escaped Detroit. This very unique version of Detroit that is just kind of odd to me. Like you mentioned, all the players that they have now as veterans. And I know, and you and Bryce talked about it yesterday. Like, they've got more shooting, Detroit does, but still only 109 points. That's not very much in today's NBA, especially against the Pacers defense, right? So that just kind of shows you like how stagnant that team can be at times. But I talk about this being a statement game for New York, but like, let's flip it just for a second. This could be a statement game for the Pacers because
Totally.
everybody's kind of counting them out. Everyone thinks they're a fluke, but if they go in there in New York on New York's opening night and they beat a team that's got Karl Towns, OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, and Jalen Brunson, as well as Deuce McBride, who, my God, looked amazing in his debut against the Celtics. I mean, if they can go in there and beat them again, I think the league's going to be put on notice a little bit that Indiana is not a team to overlook like they have been in the offseason. So, I'm sorry for being so negative about the Pacers against the Knicks, early on, because this could be a huge statement game for Indiana.
No, it really could, and I think it's a great way to put it because this game is on ESPN. I think a lot of people that maybe don't typically watch the Pacers are going to say, "Oh wow, Knicks Pacers! Actually, I'm into that. Like, I want to check this game out." And this is that opportunity that if you win, it's like, so why is everybody picking the Knicks above the Pacers? Because last I checked, Indiana bounced them in Game 7 in the Garden, and if we go into the Garden again and beat them again, and they're 0-2 and we're 2-0, yeah, you do got to put a little bit of respect on this Pacers team because I know the whole thing was, well, the Knicks weren't healthy. Okay, they're healthy now. They got no excuses. None. It's all I heard all offseason living in New York is how the Knicks weren't healthy and just wait until they get healthy. Or they're healthy and they've traded for two, whatever you want to call them, an all-star and a borderline all-star. Like, you got all the help you could possibly ask for. Let's see what you do with it. So I really do hope that Indiana can come out there and hit them in the mouth early on and be able to just show that they're not here just to be a part of the Eastern Conference playoff picture. This is a team that is coming off the Eastern Conference Finals run, and they should have that respect on their name.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see. And once again, Obi Toppin going back to New York. I know he loves that, but you've got the bad blood there, and I'll be interested to see how they match up. I'm just thinking out loud in my head how these two teams will match up, 5-on-5 wise. If I'm Indiana defensively, I'm probably putting Turner on Karl Anthony Towns, Siakam on OG Anunoby. And then your question mark for me is like, do you put Nembhard on Bridges or do you put Nesmith on Bridges? Because do you really want to see Nembhard on Brunson again? Because we saw how that looked in the playoffs. Maybe you start out with it, see if he's improved at all. Maybe he learned something from that. Because I think that was their initial plan, was to put Nembhard on Brunson, and it didn't work for the first couple of games, so they had to make the switch. It would make more sense to see if maybe Nembhard learned from that series and how can he defend Brunson differently heading into this season. And of course, you're going to try to hide Tyrese Haliburton on Josh Hart, because if you look at what the Celtics did, they were hiding people on Josh Hart, whether it was Al Horford or another point guard that was smaller. They were always putting their probably worst defender on Josh Hart, saying, okay, Josh, you beat us from outside. We'll live with that. We're going to make sure we cover everybody else. So that to me could kind of be the black hole of the Knicks offense right there. So that'll be interesting to see. Obviously, we know how good they are defensively. I think Jalen Brunson, Karl Towns, probably their weak links right there. So depending on who Towns is guarding, I mean, if you can get some pick and roll action there with Haliburton and Turner versus Towns and Brunson, that could be some really nice offensive moments there for the Pacers. But yeah, overall though, I'm excited for this game. The more I think about it, the more juiced up I am. And Facci and I won't be doing every single Friday night game, but we are going to get together, whether it's Friday night, Saturday morning, and do a game recap of that, just because of the magnitude of the game and the matchup and the opponent. So hope you guys are tuned in for that. But other than this game, I think it's a great way to get the season started out. A win's a win, 115, 109. You take care of business. You play better defense, right? It's going to help your defensive rating numbers that you held the Pistons to 109. Let's see what after tonight's games are, where the Pacers rank defensively, because that would be just fun to put out there for a hot minute and see what people do. And we have a little bit of a overreaction to game one, but I'm excited. I'm excited for the future of this of this team, Facci, and I'm excited for the season, man. 1 down, 81 more to go.
There's very, very few days in the year where you could say best record in the NBA. And today is that day. Undefeated. Let's just bask in it for just a little bit longer and hope that we can push it to 2-0 and string together some of these games. We talked about in the past how Indiana's played down to their competition far too many times. Oh, they did it for 3 quarters. Best part about basketball, it's a 4-quarter game. And in the end, hey, they passed the first test. The next test is against a team that you will see in the playoffs. The Knicks will be there. They will be waiting for us. Let's see how this Pacers team responds. I think this is an awesome, just early season battle to really just say, hey, no offense to the Hornets or the Wizards, or any of those other teams. This is awesome to have this game so early in the season because it feels like we're almost picking up where we left off.
It really does, Facci. It's exciting to see what's happening with this team, and I'm going to continue to monitor the Wiseman situation as we move forward, Isaiah Jackson status, because they're going to need size. They just, once again, they really need Turner healthy for the length of the season, and you can't be going down without your bigs to help him out. Band-Aids don't fix bullet holes, as Taylor Swift says in her song, and she'll be in town here shortly before you know, and the Pacers will be on the road, I'm assuming, for those times, and so will the Colts, because she'll be rocking out Lucas Oil Stadium. There's a massive picture of her on the side of the JW Marriott Hotel downtown that has just kind of taken over Indianapolis. So I don't know how many street signs are out there that have are relative to like song track or song titles and stuff like that for her. So I'm sure your wife would love it, seeing all the crazy stuff down here they got for Taylor Swift. But it's are you ready for it, as Taylor would say. So let's get ready for these games coming up. It's going to be a lot of fun. But we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up here, Facci. Everybody knows where to find us at on social. It's Pacers Pod, STP, or Setting the Pace. Just look for either one of those. You'll find us there. I'm at Alex Golden NBA. You're at _FACCI. We're on YouTube, where you can find all of our content at youtube.com/Setting the Pace, a Pacers podcast. And of course, our videos will be up there more regularly now that we are on the regular season grind and just getting things back going. But Facci, if you're hoping the Pacers can, pull a stone cold stunner in the Garden against the Knicks on Friday, then hit me with those 3 words.
Let's go, Pacers.